Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Am One Two podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. With me in the studio is the man that makes everything happen. Without him, this podcast would not be here. Please send him some love in the comments. Dan the man, hello. How you doing today?
I am doing fantastic today. All juiced up. Reasons you guys don't need to know right now, but I am looking forward to our guest and hearing his story once again today. And just love Justin, and I'm glad he's here.
Yeah, we got a great story in store for you all today. I love stories of people who had to go a little bit further than I did, because it makes me very grateful that I, for whatever reason, was spared that and survived it. So, Justin, welcome to the podcast. Really glad you're here with us.
Awesome. Love being here, bro. Thank you.
I know the viewers at home might be watching your shirt during the podcast and going, what does that say? And that's the first question I asked them, too. So tell them what your shirt says.
It says in Sanskrit, ancient language in the Indian subcontinent, says Om Namah Shivaya, which is Om, greetings to the auspicious one.
Om Nami Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya. Choose. Am I the auspicious one? We all are. Damn it. I thought it was just me. Well, welcome to the podcast, Justin. Really glad you're joining with us today.
Definitely. I love it.
All right. We're going to ask you the first question. Is the most important question of the day, but also the easiest. What is your sobriety date?
Sobriety date is October 10th, 2011.
2011. Hell yeah. So we just celebrated 14?
13 going on 14.
13 going, that's right. No, 14. Congratulations. That's awesome. All right. Well, let's start at the beginning. Tell us where you were born. Where did you grow up? Brothers and sisters. Tell us a little bit about your family, maybe.
Yeah, I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, 2/12/1989, so I'm 36 years old. And I was born to a regular middle-class family, quite religious family, especially from my dad's side. And that'll play a role later on, I'll probably get to, in my recovery. And it was a fairly normal childhood growing up. 8 years after I was born, I had my little brother Bradley, and so I had him growing up, and went to church on Sundays, went to school, did average in school at best. My behavior was pretty erratic a bit up until about 7th grade, and I guess I hit some puberty or whatever kind of changed, but I was a little bit more calm at that point, I guess. But when I grew up, it really, to me, I didn't grow up around alcoholism or any kind of what I would call negative status of any kind, nothing like that. Mm-hmm. But I learned later my father was an alcoholic through a lot of his adult life, mm-hmm. and I was born, and about a year after I was born, he quit drinking.
Interesting.
Totally dry, no program. My mom used to think it was funny, before I was born, she'd find him pissing in the closet and things like that, and so I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty alcoholic to me, Dad, and he'd be like, yeah, I kind of was pretty bad out there, but he basically just was a dry drunk for many years until later on he found a program. We'll get to that.
Did your mother turn the screws on him a little bit to get him to stop, or did something happen that made him stop?
To my knowledge, I think it was just, what my dad told me was he came home and he saw me as a 1-year-old and just didn't want to do it anymore.
Jeez. And
he had the church, so I think, in the language of the program, he basically did steps 1, 2, 3, mm-hmm. and stayed sober that way for a while.
That is really cool. Again, you guys, Mark, who was on our show recently for everybody, had these fathers in your life that I did not have. And to feel that connection that he would want to do that for your future, it's mm-hmm. powerful. Very powerful.
Very beneficial.
I wonder if some of your nervousness came around because of his dryness, or you might have had a little ADD going on before puberty.
Oh, yeah, definitely. With the relation to other kids, I was bullied quite a bit. I was the fat kid, too, and I let them know it and stuff, but I was always a pipsqueak, scared little kid on the inside the whole mm-hmm. time, and allowed the bullying to happen, and so all that kind of influenced me early on when I was young.
Mind if I touch on that a second? Because I've been revisiting some of that in my own story, and I find that in my patients, as part of their trauma, they undervalue bullying, but it's right up there scientifically with any other trauma. There was one dude that just made it his mission. I don't know if he was... I knew at the time he was kind of gaining status by putting me down or just picking on me. And I wanted to be his friend. I didn't even really want to fight him. I got no beef with the dude, but he just would just cause fights out of nowhere. It's just really hard to go through that when you try to tell your parents or anybody, and they just go, "Oh, just try to get along," or "Here, let me teach you how to fight," or whatever bullshit. You're like, I don't want to fight him. I'm trying to be friends with the guy.
Yeah.
Was your situation particularly traumatic, do you think, or?
No, I never was physically harmed. I was always, I guess, because I was bigger than a lot of the other kids, and just didn't.
There you go.
But I never used that bigness to get back at them. I was just sort of, that insecurity that I had. But it really wasn't until, about 7th grade, it all kind of stopped in a way. Like my mental attitude and puberty or whatever kind of changed a lot, and I was able to sort of, at that time, sort of move on in a way and go into high school. And my parents knew about it a little bit, but it wasn't really talked about or discussed much.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like, Justin, all right, we'll do this, Justin, if this happens. It never really came to that at all.
Gotcha.
But my dad definitely had a temper growing up.
Did he?
Anger, red face, everything. So if I didn't do something right in school or whatever, there it was. I always go back to that in the movie A Christmas Story. There, after he beats up that kid, the bully or whatever, and he comes home, he tells his mom, breaks it up, and he's at home in his bed, and he knows his dad's coming home, is going to find out, and he goes, I hear my dad pulling the driveway, and a wave of terror ran over me. And that was me. Like, whenever something was going on or something happened, like, I was afraid. But my dad hit me one time by accident with a remote. He never fizzed, but his anger, and he would grab me and, like, that kind of stuff. And just the most traumatic part of it was just his anger, like just the anger, and it played a little bit of a role in my brother too when he was growing up too.
So the expression, but I guess also the explosiveness, it would come out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The unpredictability can make it even more damaging for a child, because what kind of mood is he in today, kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What were you into back there then as a kid? Did you have any hobbies or activities, school activities, or anything you were into?
Growing up, it was mostly video games. Didn't have a whole lot of friends with the bullying and stuff, but had a couple. But a buddy of mine, Ryan, lived behind me. He was a good friend of mine. Lived next door to us. But it's really just playing outside. I didn't really get into any, sports or anything until I was like in 7th grade. I got into football.
Cool.
But other than that, I didn't really have much aspirations as a kid. I remember I wanted to be an astronaut when I was in 1st grade.
Yeah.
And then I remember later on I was a big fan of Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, and I wanted to be like a wildlife biologist or something.
Oh yeah.
So that was kind of the early aspirations of where I started on my journey in this life. So.
What was your video game back in the day?
Oh, well, I can tell you, Nintendo 64 was a big deal when it came out.
Uh-huh.
Playing that Super Mario 64 and Star Wars Rogue Squadron, and then Grand Theft Auto came out on PlayStation 2. I was playing the heck out of that. And back, it's mature, but parents bought them anyway. They didn't really care. But I don't think it really negatively affected me at all. But that's I just enjoyed video games a lot and stuff. And it wasn't really until like about high school when I got a little bit more athletic kind of stuff in football and things, and branched out of sort of my own cave of introvertedness that I kind of grew up with more of than extroverted.
Did you have a coach that was a bit of a mentor to you that helped you with that?
Well, I would say my brother was born when I was 8, and that came up, and I started having more of a duty, I guess, in a way of, taking care of him. And like when I got a little bit older, I started stepping up to my dad a little bit, because that same anger would come out on him,
Uh-huh.
and it got, and so that kind of drove me a little bit when I was growing up. And
But I meant, like, when you got in football, did you have a guide, a coach that really took you under his wing and helped you out, or?
I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
That I remember
But
specifically.
you liked it and you had talent for it.
I did. It was more of the camaraderie, and going to high school. I went to Catholic grade school.
Okay.
And I grew up Protestant Baptist. My dad took me, but my dad put me in Catholic grade school for the education
Okay.
and stuff.
Was that confusing from some of the teachings?
Yeah, but I was always the guy. Like, everybody went to me for Bible. Like, where do you find this passion of the Bible? Justin knows.
Uh-huh.
All the Catholic kids don't really. They don't really study the Bible as much as Protestants, I don't think. So I was always going on Sunday school and stuff, and, at the Baptist church, and we did a lot of youth group and Bible study and stuff like that. So I was a big I was big on the Bible back when I was growing up, and
Interesting.
so, but also in that church environment, more so I had friends in there in the youth group than so much at school earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a pretty good thing. And it was also a lot of the fear and stuff of the religion and things I should do, and not having sex before marriage, and all this, like the way things God wants me to be, and how I should be goody two shoes, and like how I should do this and that, and like the cage of rules, I would say, that kind of comes with religious belief and stuff, kind of came around me a lot. And so I had a lot of resentment earlier on, like in pursuing women, or it wasn't women at the time, it was girls. I was a kid, but the about how, you can't have sex till you're married, that kind
Right
of stuff.
or wrong, the guilt that comes with it and all that. The Catholic Church really did a good number on me with guilt.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary. It's a control measure, right? But I don't know. I mean, a lot of people would consider that, when you go to a Catholic elementary school, I went for the first 3 years, third grade. And I don't know, I feel like it affected me. Now, back in the 60s, the nuns were a lot meaner. I don't know if they still physically put their hands on you all in the 80s, but they did in the 60s.
Yeah, in the 90s I went. We had a nun for one of my teachers, but by the time I got there, I guess they quit. Even though when I was in kindergarten going to first grade, I remember her name, Sister Lois. Oh, she has a whip, but nobody ever got a whip.
Oh, you heard it.
She probably used to whip.
Yeah, you heard about the whip. It's interesting. All right, so you're playing football, maybe getting a little bit more, moxie for the chicks and shit,
Mm-hmm.
Right. When does alcohol and drugs come into your story?
It comes in 16 years old. I have some friends actually from the youth group at church. We've all kind of grown up over the years, and a buddy of mine, his dad had a shack out in Meade County that he owned, and him and a bunch of
why does that sound appealing to us? I heard the word shot down. Let's go. Let's see what that's about, man.
And so I ended up going out there with a bunch of them, and I'm 16. I haven't even got my I got my permit, but I don't have a driver's license. And we go out there and we have a party, and there's kegs, and I'm drinking Bud Light out of the kegs. And first time I went out there earlier in the summer, that was my first thing was alcohol. But I got kind of drunk, but not crazy drunk. And it wasn't really a thing for me per se. Like I thought it was, it changed my thing. It was fun. And then like a few months later, we went out again. I got way more drunk on purpose. Kind of passed out in the car and threw up. And I remember pissing and walking. I was walking trying to get out of people's way and shit. But it wasn't really. That was not the. I literally, had I never introduced to my drug of choice, or any other drugs of choice, I could probably have made the rest of my life without alcohol, because it was not a thing. I didn't.
That's how I felt. It did not click with me. I would do it, and certainly when there was nothing else to do, and I would supplement it. If I'm smoking pot, I love to drink wine with it or something, or have a nice neat scotch when you're trying to be cool in New York, was where I was. But otherwise, I could take it or leave it. I wasn't big on alcohol, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I remember in high school, 17 years old, I had a headache or some kind of legitimate pain I had or something. And I asked Mom, I was like, "You got any pain medicine?" And I meant ibuprofen, Tylenol, whatever. And Mom was like, "Well, I got some Vicodin in the cabinet." And our family doesn't know anything about Vicodin. I literally didn't know anything whatsoever. Had no intention or ill intention. I was like, okay, I just thought it was like a souped up aspirin or something, legitimately. And I remember playing on PlayStation 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, the game, and my guy was running around stealthy through the woods and shit, and just imagine the guy just stops. And this wave of awesomeness just rolled over me. I remember sitting on the bed and there it was. I was alive. I was there.
Awesomeness.
Yes.
I love it the way you describe that, man.
Yeah.
The remake of that is coming out in just a couple of weeks for PlayStation 5.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. So I love to get people's description of what it did for you, what you like about it. And I love Wave of Awesomeness. What else do you need to ask? But what do you feel like it brought to your table that was positive, that you liked? What'd you get out of it?
It's that endorphin, dopamine rush, that feeling of that feeling of happiness. I think, and most people Alcoholics and Alcoholics in Recovery, like we know that moment, or we remember a moment earlier on, like when that hit, and that was that moment.
Best moment of my life.
Yeah, chasing it ever since, and in different various ways, and ultimately until I got sober.
But I want to hear what that means to you, because to me, best moment of my life means they had been telling me my whole life that drugs are bad, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I did this, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is the answer. I thought I had found God. I know it sounds crazy to people, but people would go to church and say, man, I feel so connected, and I feel in touch with my higher power. And I'd be like, I don't feel anything. But I felt something. And I was so shut down from my alcoholic family that was like a get your attention, grab you by the nutsack, like you need to come over here because this is good. Mm-hmm. And I hear that from you, that drug really spun your head around big time.
Oh yeah, it was all I really. I mean, it was the experience, the physical experience I could have like here and now at the moment.
Right.
Like I could access it if I had that thing. I didn't have to put any effort into it really earlier on. Later on, I did a lot, but I didn't have. And so, I remember taking like every now and then I'd take one from the medicine cabinet and use it and just lay back and just, some people say opiates, give them energy or whatever. It just chilled me the F out, and I was just, just doing this. They see, but in this, it outwardly looks terrible, but it's so good inside to me. I mean, it's hard for those who are not who haven't been an alcoholic or a drug addict. Like, it's hard to imagine, but we're just blissed out.
Not that hard, because everybody has experienced orgasm. Mm-hmm. And it's the very similar thing, except the higher you go on the food chain with opiates, the more intense the orgasm. And I've heard heroin addicts, they imagine 1 million orgasms at once.
Oh yeah,
just all of your just shooting off in your body, and you want to chase that good feeling.
And unlike alcohol, you don't have to keep drinking till you get your effect. It's one pill is enough to bam.
And it doesn't smell, and you're not sloppy, and you might nod off on them, but
Yeah.
So all right, your head. So I misunderstood the pills. Who had the pills?
My mom.
Your mom did.
She got them prescribed for like a injury or something.
And how many were in the bottle when you started?
I don't know, 12 or more.
12.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's a limited supply.
Yeah.
So did you start researching? How can I find more of these, and what else is out there? Or?
I didn't really have to, because I've started in my senior high school. So I was 17 when I had that experience, and then I started working at UPS. And seniors can go have 2 classes at school, then work at UPS here in this city.
Oh, cool.
And so I was working there, and I just ran to the guy that was talking about something, a buddy of mine at the time, Justin, same name. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, pills. And I'm like, what? And like, I remember I was like, what are you talking about? Oh, Oxycontins. And I was like, oh, is that like, so I was like, I do Vicodin. And I had no access to it really at that point. I kind of just used that supply, and that was about it with my mom. And I was like, well, I got some at the house, I was like, oh, interesting. What is it like? It's just like a super powerful Vicodin. Cool. And I get over there and half my money, and I pay the guy, and his friends are like grinding up, snorting it. And I'm like, I just kind of want to swallow it. It's like, everybody snorts it. And so I was like, all right, whatever. And that began
That's game over.
I know.
Because like what I'm thinking, and Dan's over here probably thinking the same thing. You went from kindergarten to graduate level using overnight with that pill.
Yes.
Like that changed your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And how old were you?
17.
Damn, son.
Turned 18 in February, my son.
I mean, when you find your favorite chemical, but then you find that top-notch grade level of your favorite chemical, that's a scary moment, because you realize I want to be here forever. I'm in trouble. Mm-hmm. Did you have that intuition, like, oh, I like this too much?
No, I kind of earlier on it was kind of just on the weekend thing when I got paid.
Or did it scare you because it was so much more powerful than the Vicodin?
No, because he had a cutter, and he'd cut up into quarters the pills to where I could only do a little bit at a time. Okay. Earlier on.
Well, he took care of you then.
So, but yeah, that was for about a year or so, it was a weekend kind of thing, and it progressed and progressed and progressed.
Okay, so how much were they at age 17? Because this is before the big epidemic started.
So an 80 milligram Oxycontin was $60.
Oh, even back then?
Something like that.
Oh, okay.
And so I started off doing 20 to 40, and then ultimately doing whole 80s eventually. Within a couple years after that.
Wow. So, what did you first notice about how it affected your life in a negative way, or your relationships, or your job? What was maybe the first brick that fell that made you connect that I wonder if this has to do with my using? Or was it a while till that ramped up?
I'd say it was probably when I got accepted into U of L.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember and I didn't want to go. My parents was like expecting me to go and stuff. And I really didn't want to go to college at that point. Like, I'd found my thing. Like, I just wanted, and so I didn't have much money. Money is one of the first things that kind of went. Of all my extra money is going to this. And I remember writing out this letter to my mom and dad, like, hey, I've been using this substance, using these pills, and I want to do my best to get off of them, and I won't do them ever again, and something like that. Like, I'm sorry, kind of thing. I mean, my parents read that, and they were crying and stuff, and they just hoped I never did it again. But it was literally just, I don't really want to stop. I just did that to kind of give them an excuse why I wasn't going to college.
Oh, I get it.
You know, and so from that point on, actually, my dad was very vigilant. He learned pretty soon afterwards what my pinprick pupils means. I was high. He started learning. And so, yeah.
It's interesting because I was wondering what had backed you into the corner to write that letter, and that makes sense. The heat was on for you to go to college, and you just really couldn't do it, didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was pretty early in your career. At what age they got that letter?
Late, almost 19 years old.
Okay. Yeah, but still, in your using career, wasn't that fairly early?
Yes,
for what
early.
was going to come next? Yeah. So, did they consider getting you treatment or anything, or they just figured you'd sort it out?
Initially, let's see, they probably thought I was being honest or trying to get off or not, you know. And it's 2007 I graduated, and 2010 was my first introduction to recovery that they put me into the Brook, an outpatient.
Okay, hold up on that for a second. So we have a question I like to ask of anybody. When you go back to that 18-year-old Justin, and I had a magic wand where I could say, I can make it so that you can have any career path you want in life and you will be successful at it. Did you have any dreams or any career ideas for yourself?
Evolutionary biologist, probably.
Yeah? Tell me about that. What's that mean?
It's just study of evolution and things like what animals and how animals evolve, evolution over time and different things.
Like Darwin stuff?
Yeah.
You were just fascinated by that?
I was.
That's interesting.
Quite a bit.
That's interesting.
But what kind of got me into that was when I was still going to, right before I graduated, I was still going to, church and stuff. And I remember I started questioning religion and stuff, because I remember the day I started questioning was I was like 16, 17, and my youth pastor was saying that I was talking about how old the earth was. He was like, I think the earth's 6,000 years old. And I remember, how is that even possible? And I went to my science teacher, my junior high school, so yeah, I was 16, 17. And he was like, you asked him to show a picture of those dinosaur footprints and human prints in the same rock layer he claims to have, which obviously is not true. And so I remember that kind of shook my faith in what I believed of. And so leading into that, I read books like, from Richard Dawkins, an atheist, and he's also an evolutionary biologist. And I sort of got into more of an atheistic outlook, within about a year after that, and basically becoming resentful at the religion that I grew up in. And I didn't think, this whole time of my life, I wasted my life earlier on, and just totally wasted it up to this point. All this was a lie, this religion thing, and it's not true. And I have all this evidence and stuff, and all these debates I watched, and I'm convinced of the atheists. That was a kind of a pretty good shock there at that point. And that's right soon after I started my first use,
I would say that's almost a justified resentment based on what you've shared with us, because you did dedicate and you stayed on the straight and narrow till 16. A lot of kids don't make it that long. And you tried to do everything you were told to do, and then to find out it's based on a sham, that's a hard blow. It really is. But that is something I've always admired about you, and we're going to get deeper into that further on, that you are a seeker, in my opinion. You're a guy that's always open to new knowledge, trying to find new ways, deeper ways to express your spirituality, and I think that's a fantastic quality that you have. So maybe as it was with my story, sometimes these disappointments have to happen to send us on that odyssey of searching. Otherwise, we may never have gone on that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So tell us about how it got worse, and before leading up going to the brook, did you ever consider yourself a drug addict, so to speak? Now, I don't even know at that time, 2007, they probably weren't fully aware of what opiates were doing to people. It really was a little bit later that
Yeah.
blew up in the news.
Well, it progressed, more and more Oxycontin, and they had the great Oxycontin switchover, as they call it, where they made them all anti-abuse, and so everybody started doing Opanas, which are just another form, a different hydromorphone instead of oxycodone.
And how suspicious is that? Well, we got to put some regulations on this one, but we got this other one here.
Exactly. But still all going up my nose. It goes up the nose just the same. And so throughout, a couple of years, I'm meeting all different types of people, getting drugs from everything, and I'm introduced to things, meth, crack, all these things that are around the people that are doing distributing the pills and things like that. Methamphetamine was a big one for me in different intervals. Oftentimes, if I didn't have like pills or whatnot, I'd do some meth. Stephen King has a good line. He's like, if you could use it, I abused it. if it was in front of me, if I could change my feeling, that's what would happen. And so that was kind of more of the feeling of what kind of got to me. Like, I started noticing I'm doing more and more shit. I'm working at UPS, and I'm making $160 a week, working part-time. And that's when I started stealing stuff from the family, stealing things to support my habit. And so when I started stealing things and stuff, that's kind of when I started maybe I had an inkling, but I just wasn't ready yet at that time.
It's such a difficult line to cross, and then shocking how easily we cross it, because I too stole from my own family, and that is not in any way, shape, or form anything that is part of my soul or the way I was brought up. I mean, there's nothing in any fiber of me that would take your shit if I love you. And I wouldn't take people's shit anyway. I'm just not that kind of person. And I would just do that unthinkingly, because I was like, well, I'm just going to pawn it. I'm going to get it back. I would always get a ticket, and I'm going to go back and get it at a later date, when I make it, hit the lottery or something. But I never once got anything back. And that is one of my biggest. I did make amends, but it's hard to not feel like a complete scumbag for stealing from your own family. Was there any item in particular that you took that you knew was sentimental?
After my grandmother died, her wedding ring.
Oh, it's a tough one.
My mom had it. After her grandma passed away, she took all her belongings. So, yeah, right to the pawn shop or the jewelry store.
And they give you pennies on the dollar. They would see me coming and say, bend over, son. We're going to give you this much for what you're bringing in here.
40, 20, 10.
They just view the desperation in your eye to figure out what discount rate they can get.
Which, by the way, there's that new movie out called Weapons. It's in theaters.
Yeah.
And it's different POVs, and one of them's a drug addict.
Interesting.
And he literally goes to the pawn shop. I was like, that's me. That's me right there.
You're the second person that has brought that movie to my attention. Plus, everything I've read about it. But my nurse this past week said that she saw it, and her friend took her and she said, "Don't tell me anything about it. I just want to go in cold." She loved it. And she's not really into the horror, or she says not really all horror, but it sounds intriguing. All right, so. What's the wall you hit before the brook? How did we end up going to the brook? The brook is a hospital here in town for people with some situations, and we help them out.
Probably my mom finding out something else I'd stole out of her room, and her screaming, "You're killing yourself," crying. That was a big wall. And that was kind of when I was like, okay, I'll get help, or attempt to get help. Wasn't fully in it at the time, but it was something. All my biggest things, the walls, the hitters, more and more. It's basically it was basically my parents and people around me removing the life situation I was in, removing places to stay, starting to threaten that, where you can't stay here anymore, you got to do this, taking away the my parents being more going toward the path what they should have done from the beginning. But it's fucking hard because our parents love us to death, literally.
Yeah, it is the hardest thing for them to give us consequences, but it sounds like they were good, taking the right path doing that. Was that coinciding with your dad embracing his recovery journey, or did that show up?
He didn't start getting sober he didn't start getting into the program. I think it was right around the time I got sober, though. He didn't actually start going to meetings until right. It's really close to when I first got sober.
Because something's not lining up. Because when we had the Monday Night Broad Highway group, and he came to that.
Oh yeah, he came a lot just to support me.
He was supporting you.
He didn't get in the program later till about a year, and Dick Barrett became a sponsor.
Okay, cool. So you go to the Brook. What was your impression, and what did they do for you there?
Well, I remember the night before I had cocaine. I did it, stayed all night, and I fell asleep, and I woke up the next day, and they said the opiate use I had at the time was like, an 80 of OxyContin every other day or whatever. And they're like, that's not enough for inpatient. We'll give you outpatient. And so they set me up to go into outpatient, and then the nurse took my blood pressure. And it's like 160 over. It's like really high. And I'm like, oh, it's just because I'm in withdrawal. But it's really from the cocaine from last night that was still there. And so I got introduced to this group of recovery. I got introduced to Chris here, and a ragtag bunch of people that Brian C. was one of those people.
We're going way back, man.
Yeah. And
I was in person before the pandemic.
Yeah. And this is 2009-10 was my first time in the group. And it was my first experience with recovery at all. I had no idea what recovery was.
Right.
But I started,
And here comes this counselor, rah.
Yeah.
It's all good, man. What was your first impression of that? Say, who is this nut?
Yeah. I don't think you thought you were a nut. I just thought you were doing what you could and challenged me a lot on the things that I needed.
He's been very nice.
And going to meetings, get these papers signed, and I start going to meetings. I still remember the first ever AA meeting I went to. It was at the Token Club, and it was a speaker meeting, and he was from Boston. And then what I remember about his speech was when he was out in the madness, he would get drunk and go rob houses, and whenever he would wake up from the night before, if he was inside a house, his first thought was, is this somebody I know, or is this the house I'm trying to rob? And so I remember that. I remember that's the first meeting ever, and I thought it was funny as hell. And so I met another guy named Walter S. there. He was a really good early good person to get me into the rooms.
That shit-eating grin on his, it was very disarming. He probably just looked at you like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
What are you doing, man? You need some help.
Yeah. So I went through the thing, but I didn't really stay sober through it. I would drink a shitload of water, and I would be peeing like once every 30 minutes, and then do your piss test the first time.
Did it work?
Yeah, sometimes it does on some things, but I don't know. Should we edit that out? No, probably not.
Usually it doesn't work, but it depends on what you'd use and how much.
So, but I remember I got introduced to the Broad Highway group, which was on the old location in the church in the basement.
Yep,
Breckenridge Lane. And I went to one meeting, and I kind of just went on my thing. I was like, Mom, Dad, I did my thing. I went to some meetings and stuff, yeah. And I continued using, and consequences kept racking up. And it got to the point to where I've been at UPS for about 5 years, and I was doing pills, getting up to the point to where I was doing, an 80 a day of OxyContin or whatever, and been at UPS for 5 years, and all of a sudden, some pills, and there's some pills in in one of these packages. I'm loading this big giant semi truck in the back, and it's the first thing I remember seeing was like Xanax or something. I was like, oh my God. And I talked about how I met my first drug connection there. Like, we had never seen pills go through there. If it was pills, it was vitamins or something. It never was narcotics of any kind. And so I was like, oh my God, like gold mine, like. And so eventually I kept it was all going to this one truck in like Phoenix, Arizona, and there was eventually I found Vicodin, like 5 million, like 1,000 count containers of them going through there.
Jesus, son.
And so over the course of about 6 weeks, the truck that had those came through every Friday, once a week, and I stole about 1,500 to 2,000 Vicodins. And eventually they caught on, and somebody came and said, "We know what you've been doing." And I had about a few hundred in my pocket at the time. Anyway, and despite my own drug buddy saying, "You better watch out, man. You better be careful." I just, I had the first time in my life I ever had to stash of drugs because I stole so many. I actually had a stash. I didn't never had enough money for a stash.
So this is getting close where they could call the cops on you.
And so I was arrested that day. There.
Okay, they did call the cops.
Yeah.
That's very embarrassing.
Indeed.
Did you have to do the perp walk as they took you out past your other employees?
The cop said to me, he said, I'll tie these in the front so you don't get too embarrassed instead of behind you. And so I did that and went and I told them, they gave the cop, when they did my first interview, they put me from UPS to the district wherever I was interviewed. And they had given him a list of all these pills that were missing and they've been tracking.
Uh-huh.
They're like, "Justin, did you take these? Some of them I hadn't. Some of them were like different things or whatever." And he was like, "Did you take these pills?" "Yes." "Did you take these 452 pills out of this one?" "Yes." So it was like 1,500 to 2,000 Vicodins that I had stolen.
He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you must have been shitting your pants.
Absolutely. My first offense. It all came to a head that day. I went into my mom worked for attorneys for several years. She was secretary.
Uh-huh.
And I called and told them I was in jail. And they got me ROR because back then you could have a judge to sign and get you out. And I got out that day, actually. That's a lot of privilege in some way for a lot of people that don't have.
Sure.
And so I just went home, and so I had these charges of theft and theft, controlled substance, trafficking of controlled substance because of how many I had, and I must have been, and I was trading them for Oxycontins basically, and taking a shitload of them too. Kind of worried, but not worried enough that all that Tylenol could damage my liver and fucking kill me.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever, I need to get high.
Mm-hmm.
And so that began. In that period, I'm fired from UPS, and I'm not really working, but I kind of keep on using, and I get into the book a second time while I'm waiting for like sentencing or everything to get done with that. And I go on inpatient this time, like I had, gotten really bad and drunk and high and couldn't take more shit. It's almost always when my parents found out I had stole more stuff. Every time.
Mm-hmm.
And they dropped me off there. I was there for 8 days. Went through your class again. I was a little bit more earnest about it in a way of like getting a sponsor and doing things like that. I had a guy named Derek, if you're Patrick's friend, and back then, and so I got a sponsor and started getting in. I met a guy named Eddie G, and where they all lived in the house together, and Chris S. They all lived in the same house.
He passed away.
I don't know if I did.
Yeah. The Derek that I sponsored?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He struggled a lot, and there was one night we were over there, and we were doing a game night or something, and he was so gone, but he thought he was fooling all of us, and he kept going back to his bedroom and disappearing for 10 minutes, then coming back out, and it's my turn, that kind of shit, and he ordered all this pizza, and he just started shouting it down his mouth. We're just like, this guy's out of control, and I had heard from, I don't know if it's Eddie or somebody had told me over the years that he eventually overdosed or something, but and it's a shame. I love that kid. I really did.
Yeah. So
I used to fuck with him so bad.
Yeah.
It's a stupid story, but I think it's funny, so bear with me. So he had an episode where he had a psychotic break coming off his dope, and he was tied down in some hospital bed somewhere in psych ward, whatever he was. And they had this TV on in the other room, and he was kind of staring at it, and he could swear the devil kept popping up on the screen, and it flipped him out. I mean, he literally was like, he felt like it was coming for his soul, and he thought it was a real devil and shit. So every time I'd see him, I would just say, El Diablo. And he'd say, that's not funny, dude. That's not funny. Don't do that shit. I said, okay, sorry, man. I had to wait a little bit.
Back when we had nicknames and brought
El Diablo. I would just say it again. I just called him Dirk. Dirk.
Mhm.
And now I got a new Dirk in our group that I do that too. But yeah, sweet kid, man. Such a waste. This
Yeah.
disease.
But I didn't stick. I wasn't ready. I still wanted the
But you were still getting that taste of what recovery
Oh,
was
yeah.
about. It wasn't that you were totally against it. There wasn't anything pushing you out about it, right?
no.
Okay,
Not
you
at
just
all.
weren't ready yet.
Yeah. And
So what was the drug that pulled you back out? Still the opiates?
opiates and meth and coke.
Well, that's a dangerous combination, son.
Yeah. There's plenty of times I
The
bought
little
coke.
Xanax
I
to
bought
come
coke.
down.
I bought coke and Xanax at the same time, and I bought a bunch of coke and did Xanax come down. Next morning, I wake up, I'd have no more money, and my dealer says, "You came out and bought a whole nother bunch of coke, cocaine, whatever I did." I'd totally forgotten it from the Xanax because it takes your memory away. Like, yeah, opiates are the main thing, but if you couldn't get
So
those,
he's telling you you've already got some at home, and you're like, "Oh, thanks, man."
no, I'd come out there that night after I'd taken the Xanax to come down, got more cocaine, did all that.
Oh, you did
and
it
then
all.
woke up and
Okay.
forgot I did it.
Which is a waste, man. I can't tell you how many nights I would try to save myself something for the next morning. I was never successful at that.
Oh yeah, never could. And so anyway, I went. Ended up getting because of the first offense, it ended up going to federal court because
Scary.
the pills. It was at a
Over on
airport
Bro-
and
Over on Broadway? Is that the building you went to for the trial? For the,
yeah.
Yeah, it's scary.
Federal court and,
Scary,
and
dude.
those pills were going to some veterans at the VA apparently.
Oh,
So-
man. Dude.
So, yeah, but I had a probation officer at the time, and I was able to stay mostly somewhat sober sometimes, enough to not get enough piss tests that were dirty, and they recommended first offense 2 years probation, and the judge talked to me, and I had just relapsed, and admitted to the judge that. And I remember saying something like, I let myself over on riot, like it's probably in the transcript. I got it right from AA, head of AA, even though I wasn't doing none of it. And he gave me 3 years probation.
You lucked out.
Yes, very much so.
White guy, first time offense, and some good words from your parents or anybody else, the judge gave you a chance.
Yeah,
Okay.
Judge McKinley.
And how long did you stay sober after walking out that courtroom?
Not very long at all.
And what year are we up to now?
So this is coming up to my sobriety date. It's 2000.
Here we go. Now the
10,
things get
11.
really good.
And so I have a couple of times where I'm still using on and off. I go to the Beacon House. I've been there.
Halfway House here in Louisville.
And couldn't stay sober there. Went to, and they'd always send you to the Healing Place detox whenever they had somebody. And eventually I kicked out of there and had to tell my probation officer, hey,
Okay.
this is what's going on.
Back up. How'd you get kicked out of the healing place? That's not an easy
No,
thing.
not the Healing Place, the Beacon House.
Okay, all right.
Because I had a third negative piss test, or I got high the third time. and they kicked me
Habitual
out
offender,
finally.
sir.
Oh, yeah. And so I ended up getting out of there, and my PO finds out about it. Of course, I've already been sentenced, but he's like, if you don't stay sober, eventually they can put you in there for like 6 months to federal prison. If you don't stay sober, if you don't follow, this is your rules of your probation. And I'm skirting on the edge, and eventually I go to like another halfway house, which is just for prisoners, dismiss.
Yeah.
And
Mike Heiser went there.
and I got high. I snuck out of there and got high, came back and tested positive for meth, and they kicked me out of there. And I'm walking all my shits, and
Jesus
stuff.
Christ.
And I get it was a positive piss test, and the PO is like, you got one more. You're gonna have to do something about it. You're gonna fail your probation. And so I got my parents take me back in again, and I start stealing a whole bunch more stuff, using their credit cards and using it in their name to buy stuff for people, and use that as collateral to get drugs. And finally, they find out about that, and they call Eddie G, and they literally kicked me out of their house, their life, and dropped me off at the Healing Place. The last place I wanted to go, but ended up being the best place ever to go for me. And I got on a detox there. Didn't tell my PO. Thank God. I probably would have went to prison. But either way, even if I had, that's what would happen. What would happen? And I got in there, and I remember having I had like $70 somehow or some way And I got in the program there for a week, and I ended up getting some methadone from a friend of mine one last time. And I go back, they catch me, and I go back into detox again. And
for those that don't know, would you like to give them a 1 minute summary of what detox at the Owen Place looks like? Because if you've never had the pleasure, there's always a lower bottom to go to. And I always warn people when they're at my hospital, you guys are at the Hilton of facilities here in Louisville, but Healing Place is kind of the last stop on the block.
Yeah, it's better now. They remodeled everything, but at the time it was just a whole bunch of single beds, not very comfortable at all, with little dividers.
Cots.
Cement.
They look like cots.
Yeah, and a dirty old rundown outside place to smoke.
It's a cage. Has like a little chicken wire or whatever. Yeah, I would look at you guys through that cage and go, "What are y'all doing? We're smoking, man." Instead, like a baseball bat, like a little dugout in there with a little fucking shit. But what I never got to stay there, but having visited him, giving cigarettes, whatever. You're responsible. If the guy's puking right next to you, you got to get up and clean up his puke. They'll make you do the work. Because it's good for your humility.
Yeah.
Or if you show up and you're like, well, I don't know if I want to be here, they go, great, have a seat, and they don't even pay attention to you for 8 hours. If you leave, whatever, you're not ready yet.
Yeah.
And I saw these guys in my group that I'm like begging, oh, please go to a meeting. And it's like, oh, shit. I'm trying to spare them having to go to
I've shared in your meeting, like, you guys still have jobs. You guys still have health insurance. My God.
They have no idea yet.
Yeah.
Yet. But that second time, was that the breaking point for your ego to say, I need to start staying sober?
So, yeah, that's where we get into recovery, and that's my step one. Was that next time in detox there, I'm laying in a detox bed. I remember just looking up and thinking, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's a lot of that step one, me doing that right there, is I've learned more in hindsight than at the time. But that moment is ingrained in me. Like, I remember that was the moment, like, I was like, I kind of went from knowing I was fucked up and knowing I couldn't get sober and to admitting it, like in step one. Like, there was I didn't just know it. I knew I was fucked up, but I'd finally come to grips, like, the consequences had gotten so high to the point that scared me, to the point where I was like, all right, I got to try something different. Mm-hmm. So that was my step one right there. And, I think, I always try to describe that to people, because unlike some steps in the book and stuff, there's no like, do this, mm-hmm. and you've done step one, mm-hmm. like 4-step, that's very laid out. And step one's very personal, I think. It's very mm-hmm. unique to a lot of different people.
Agree.
And that was mine.
And it's very mystical. I mean, if we could bottle it, we wouldn't have the problem of alcoholism anymore. But it's mystical and individualized based on so many factors from your past. And I have a theory as a counselor that you have to get to a place where you're offended yourself at your own life. You're offended at something you did that broke your own values or what you stand for, but you cannot look yourself in the mirror anymore. You're just like, what the fuck, dude? You are such a loser. And laying there in detox and staring at the ceiling, it's a great place to reevaluate what a loser. This is not the life I dreamed of when I was a kid, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is not what an evolutionary biologist should be doing.
Yeah. Definitely not.
Now, who crossed your path to catch your eye for sponsorship?
Like right before when I got that step one moment, and I found that was my sobriety date, October 10th, 2011. I'd been going to meetings on and off and met you guys. A lot of people had Eddie Gilmore for a sponsor for a little while, and but the one who really crossed my path that sort of got me on the straight and narrow was a guy named Mike H. Mm-hmm. Who
can you remember that first moment you saw him, or what your first impressions were?
I think I remember him. He's very bodacious in a way, very, very extroverted, talking a lot, had a cigar in his mouth, I think.
Maybe a hat, a little suit, very well dressed.
Yeah, and I just remember him sharing really well, and like thinking like, I want that, like, and it turned out to be perfect because he's an ordained preacher. Mm. And I was very atheistic at the time. And the thing we say all the time, as an alcoholic, I can't really relate to anybody. And it's having that opposite sort of caricature of myself really helped me out and gave me that extra sort of perspective on different things.
You know, Mike is very dear to my heart as a sponsee, and he helped me to grow so much because he's a challenging guy. You know, he's just not going to listen to anybody. He was in prison for 53 felonies and was supposed to be buried underneath it. And because of this program, Power of a Higher Power in a Group, he's not only out of prison, he's off paper, and he's a free man today. No record of his shit. So, but I remember that moment, and I'm sure he carried this to you in your spiritual teaching. We're in his jail cell, or in a holding cell, and they had locked the door. So I'm in here with this animal, and he's a pretty strong dude. He could snap me. And I'm like talking to him about, you got to drop this Jesus shit. And he, you do not say that to Mike, because Mike was he says it, I was born again in the joint, and that is something you don't want, because I'm going to take that book and chase you across the yard and beat you with it. And that's the kind of guy Mike is.
He learned to reading the Bible.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here going, well, okay, and I'm throwing all my different ways of looking at the spirituality of the program to say it's different than religion. And he goes, and he's quoting Bible verses at me and all that jazz. And I go, well, you know what? You probably know that book way more than I do, and I wasn't sure about that because I've had some pretty good teachers as well. But I went along with him. I said, and everything you're saying is great, but there is just one problem with everything you're saying to me. He goes, what's that, dog? And he leaned forward like he was going to attack me. And I said, well, when we get done talking, I'm going to walk out of this jail cell a free man, and you're going to sit here and rot. So what's wrong with your spirituality? I just let that hung in the air. Now, that was higher power. That was not me. I don't take credit for any of that. There are moments as a sponsor, Dan will concur, you will concur, where you just feel that power move through you to say the exact right motherfucking thing. And then I left him there because the guard came and let me out. He had to sit there and think about that shit all night. And he tells me from his own words that was the moment where he was able to separate being a preacher from his AA walk and being spiritual from his religious stuff. Mm-hmm. So you were lucky that you got that. I mean, did that help you get back into the program and rekindle your spirituality?
Yeah, ultimately that bottom got me to try something new. Even though I had been in AA and met Mike and a lot of other people, I just never took their advice. And he gave me this list of like, call me every day. And he gave me quarters, like, because at the healing place we had a payphone still. It's like, here's 8 quarters. If you lose one, you still have 7. So you have no excuse not to call me every day.
Nice.
And so, and I want you to make your bed in the morning and at night, which was easy because at the healing place you have to. Otherwise you get consequences. And then I want you to pray every morning and every night. I want you to get on your knees and I want you to say, please keep me sober today. And at night, say, thank you for keeping me sober. And this is coming from a preacher, but he, in those words, God's not in there. Uh-huh. But the very the action of taking the action of doing that, whether I didn't believe, at the time, but of doing that, by putting in that action, using the power of that step 1 I took and doing what he told me to do. I remember 2 months in at the program, I remember looking back like, holy shit, I'm sober 2 months. And that eased me into step 2. To be able to be more accepting of that kind of part of a higher power, of something other than myself that is working to keep me sober. And man, that was just, my sobriety, I'm sure yours is too, is just all these moments of memory that are always there that we can call back to. And I just remember thinking that, like, finally, like, something makes sense a little bit.
It's such a difficult formula to set up, though, because we got to be really beat the fuck up to be moldable enough to take a suggestion like that. And I had gotten to that place where I was like, all right, what do you got? I'll just do anything. Fuck it. I don't care. And you got to do these actions that seem to make no sense, right? Go to meetings, talk to people, do a little prayer action. And prayer was like holy water on me. I could not even deal with a word. But they said, you need to just do this to show him humility. Just do it. Get down on your knees and say, keep me sober. Who knows what you're talking to? Talk to your dog. Talk to the universe. Don't matter. And then same thing at night. Just acknowledge that it wasn't you keeping you sober, but something else. And God damn it, if it didn't fucking work,
yeah.
Just those little stupid things work.
Yeah.
Making my bed, I still make my bed. Mm-hmm. That's a vital piece of my program, that I'm not going to be a bum. Now, look, when I got a day off, I might not get till 3 in the afternoon if I've been busy with other shit. But I get that shit made before I go to bed the next night. It's never unmade when I go to bed.
Yeah, that the biggest one, and I shared in group this morning, was that diligently beat into me to call every time, no matter what happens. Has literally saved my life multiple times.
Tell us that story. Tell them that story that you told us in aftercare, because it's such a powerful moment in your recovery journey with your brother.
Yeah, so I'm 8 years senior to my brother, and I'm 5 years sober in recovery, and he passes away tragically in an accident. His best friend shot him right. Went through the head, so it was instant.
Jesus Christ, man.
And so I remember I was working third shift at the time, security. It was before I started working the cigar shop, and I remember waking up to it because had only been asleep for a couple hours. And my parents wake me up and tell me the news, and the police are there at the house, and we're all at the house. Me and Mom and Dad are together.
What a way to wake up, Justin.
I know.
Jesus Christ.
But within 10 minutes of being with my mom and dad in that moment, of learning the news, just automatically, like, I gotta start calling people. Like, it's not even me. It's just automatic. I've been drained. I start calling literally every single person in my support group and recovery, people I've met in the meetings, and all the perspectives I got that day, all the things I shared with them, and all the love I got, and going, that night I went to 2 meetings. I went to a meeting out in Shepherdsville with my sponsor, and then I went to like the Tuesday night men's. And the amount of love and support I received from all the people in the meetings and all the people around me, it was just, I wasn't able to generate the love myself. I needed it. It required all these people together and sharing in that moment with me to kind of help heal even that day when it hasn't happened. And so
because your first response is shock, and then anger sets in. So I'm sure you had a moment that you were thinking about going over there and killing this guy. Or doing something.
A little bit, because I didn't really know all the facts.
Right. They say accident, but nobody knew at that point what happened.
Yeah, and it was more like, what could have happened? What was going on? But you had to understand, I was sober for like 4 years.
Okay.
I had a program.
Uh-huh.
So I can't honestly say I was terribly angry at that point. I was definitely concerned and worried a little bit, and thinking about, if he did this or whatever, like, is he out? Is he locked up? Which he was. He called the police himself as soon as it happened and said, this happened and stuff. And so really, I mean, that day from my memory was not really about anger. It was about just being vulnerable with my parents and with all the guys in recovery, because that's what I did.
Yeah.
And so the lesson is, for anyone who's new, just getting that sponsor, whether it's AA, IM12, whatever, having someone give you that stuff early on, literally just in the first week of doing that, in the very beginning of my journey, ingrained in me that the tools that would save my life later, and not lose myself completely over loss of someone so close to me, or anybody else in my life for that matter. And that is one of the blessings the program gives us, that having that camaraderie, that I don't have to do this alone. We're all in this together. And so, having done that, and having worked the program and stuff, and learning, afterwards too, that, we had police come in our room, give us a laptop with like a 3D rendering of the room he was shot in, and the angles and stuff, and like all the evidence they had, and it was I 100% believe it was an accident and everything. My dad 100% believed it was an accident. My mom had a little more trouble, but she didn't have a program either, so that, or really any therapy or anything. Never went to therapy for it. So, doing that, obviously, there's some resentments, but because the program worked the fourth and the fifth step, and did that on him. So I did it one specifically on him. Mm-hmm. I didn't do like I did. I was like with my sponsor, got my sponsor, and did that, and I was able to take it as it was and understand that, it was an accident. He probably feels fucking terrible about it. I feel terrible about it, obviously, but I don't know. I've never been all that much of an angry person in general. But it was just that loss and the attachment that I had that I worked on in those very soon moments and days and weeks afterward. But ultimately, had I not had a program at all, it would have been I'm gonna get drunk and high. I'm gonna do all this stuff. Could kill myself from doing drugs and alcohol. I don't know what it would have been like because I didn't lose them when I was in the madness. I had the program, but had I never gotten sober, I could easily see all the negative. Go out and kill that motherfucker.
Right.
Happening.
But if you had used, which we know that distorts our thinking and then amplifies our emotions, and I just did this training on grief where they were talking about suicide. A big number of suicides after someone's death is their wish to reunify with their lost loved one. So, who knows? But God bless it. Good thing you were sober. I did want to explain something to anybody new out there about, what I hear from my patients all the time is, I don't want to bother them. Or, if I keep repeating this, they're going to get bored that I keep saying the same shit. Well, goddamn, you just got headed into a shit biscuit that's bigger than what most of us are going to deal with in life. So we understand that. But I want you to know, and I want anybody new to know out there, when you called me, I felt honored. And I think that's the general feeling most people feel when somebody's going through real shit and they think, oh, I can call Chris and trust him or talk to him. I'm like, God damn, I feel like very humbled and honored that you would think that. And it's one of the greatest things we get in this program is that trust. That if you call somebody that you've had experience with who's working their tools, they are safe, and especially when you're at your weakest moment. Because it's not easy to talk when you're going through something like that.
No.
So, talk to them about that guy came around into your life again. You want to talk about that part of the story?
Yeah, so I, a few years into sobriety, my brother passed, and I remember sending him a message on Facebook soon after it happened. He ended up getting out. The grand jury had evidence, and they didn't try him because, again, it was an accident. All the evidence was there. And so he was out, and I remember texting him like a few weeks after, like, hey, I don't hold any ill feelings to anyone. I just want to know what happened that night. And he never responded. And so I told my sponsor about it. I was like, okay, he's not ready. It's obviously tragic to him too. And for the record, in my experience knowing him, he was never a negative or vindictive person. I never thought any negative feelings for him at all, although he was a great friend. So.
And that tragic, just from his side, when he's going through that shock and grief and knowing he didn't mean to do that, but he has to go sit in that jail cell with that shit, that was just been a hard thing for him to deal with. So
about a few years later, I'm at work, and he shows up at my work, and it's like, hey, Justin. I'm like, yeah, you know who I am? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, could I talk to you for? I was like, yeah, I get off in about an hour. I'll talk to you then. And the heartbeat goes up, whatever. And stuff.
Yeah,
but
imagine.
Because I'd worked the program, because I'd worked all these steps and stuff, when he shows up, I don't have any negative reaction.
Huh.
The program and what I worked on and the stuff that I've done as a result of my brother passing and doing that stuff, working on the resentment against him that I had, it was basically, I was free of it when he came back, when I saw him again.
Wow.
And so after my work shift was over, I went out back behind the building in the beer garden they have on the bar side. When it came around, and he just grabbed and just started almost collapsing. He's like 6'4", 300 pounds, a big dude. And he just starts crying, and I just start crying. And man, it's just
cathartic.
And the only thing that came out of my mouth was like, "There's no hate in my heart. There's no hate in my heart. There's no hate in my heart." Like, I love you. Like, he's like, "I'm sorry."
Jeez. Wow.
And so, it just.
That's a genuine spiritual experience there, Justin.
Yeah. It was just. It was that's what I can't explain it.
Yeah, right. But it's two guys carrying this great burden and weight, coming together to release each other's weights. And how powerful is that? Because after that, didn't you feel like I can go on? It's over. It's over. Yeah.
Yeah. Any lingering thoughts I might have, it's just, and he just basically, he was not he's not an alcoholic, he's not a program, but that was his way of making his amends, and me accepting it, and just told him I love him and I'm grateful that he was there. I'm glad he was a friend of my brother's, and so that's again the program. Again, I keep going back to the program and all the all these things.
The
that
other
allow
side
us.
of that is if you had kept drinking and that would have added so much resentment to your plate. you wouldn't have been able to accept his amends or make that peace with him. And how many movies are there like that? For some reason, the movie The Pledge is coming to my head with Jack Nicholson or something, where you have a daughter or somebody who's died and you just burn you with resentment. It's just eating you up inside.
Right.
Yeah. So God bless you, man. That's a powerful story. I do want to bring Dan in here because Dan's known you a little while, and any memories he has about when he started to meet you and get to know you a little bit. But I think you've grown tremendously, especially in the last year. So I want to talk to you about your spiritual path. But just wanted to bring Dan in here for a little bit.
I was real early in sobriety. I mean, pretty new at Spiritual Underground. And I walked in there one night, and I'd had this day with work, and I was getting ready to, I thought, well, I'm gonna do a burning desire and unload this. It was something so petty now, looking back on it. And that was the night that you came in there and you had a burning desire, and you said your brother would have a shot and killed the night before. I think it wasn't the night before. It was sometime really recent. I mean, it was super recent. And man, I don't know, it was one of these ones, one of the first times that I really had that wave over me, that you come into these meetings and you think you got a problem and somebody brings something in and makes your problem vanish, and I know mine wasn't really any big deal. And I put my hand down, it's like, nope, I don't have a problem in my life today. This dude has a problem. And that was really shocking to me to see. I don't know, shocking, surprising, whatever, to watch your demeanor and how you come in there and demonstrated this program and how to do things and how you held yourself, and I could see the sorrow in you and stuff, but I still remember that night. I still remember it. I will never forget it. It was a demonstration of working this program that I'd not seen before.
You had a lot shorter hair back then.
Yeah, I did have a lot shorter hair back then. Yeah. But, and I'll be, there for a while. COVID hit, we kind of missed you for a while. So I'm glad you're back. That's another thing that I was really happy to see you start. I'd see you here and there, and we'll keep in contact. So I knew you were okay. It wasn't one of those things where a dude disappears and you're worried about that end of it. So I knew that, but I did miss your shares and missed you being around. So I'm glad to be seeing you on a regular basis too. You've been to the last 2 retreats, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, you have really, honestly, a man who has demonstrated working this program that had an impact on my recovery.
Oh, thank you.
That's awesome. And so in the past year, though, I've noticed, and maybe a year and a half, 2 years, you've kind of expanded your horizons in your seeking. And I'm not saying you haven't always sought before, but as far as the fruits of your seeking, I've seen come through in your demeanor and your talk and your behaviors. So do you want to speak on that? Because one of the biggest issues, obviously, everybody has is this God stuff. And we try to tell them, dude, it's a huge marketplace. You can choose any path, and there's a bazillion. And you can make your own path if you want. So any words on that might help somebody?
Well, the impetus to really start growing was my divorce.
Okay.
And I was married for a whole grand total of 6 months. I was with her for 4 years, and we lived together and stuff. There was some. We got married, and I had some credit card debt and stuff, and I wasn't entirely honest with her about it and how much I actually had. I remember her looking at that and and being kind of uneasy about it and stuff. But we were married, we love each other, that kind of stuff, and whatever that was, if that had something to do with it, it may have, but I just remember going home one day and she looks at me and says, I don't love you no more.
Jeez.
And, she had 2 kids, and I had 2 stepkids at that time, and, I had 4 years of my life, and that was the impetus to really grow, because I learned a whole lot about what attachment is and the suffering that is caused by it. And that attachment of mine, that's my wife, it's my kids, and I'd had this sort of thought of, we in America, we want that white picket fence, we want that dream, we want all that kind of stuff, and I got that, and that's mine now. And that was taken away from me. It wasn't really taken away from me, I didn't in the first place, technically, but it wasn't really so much resentment, it was just that I couldn't let go. And I'm literally so this is very important to my recovery, is because that was close to ever got taking a drink. was when I was, my sponsor was John Michael at this time and still is, and I was calling him all the time. I was doing this, and I was going to meetings like every day. And I remember like after she said that, and I go to a meeting on a Wednesday night. It's an older meeting, bunch of old timers. And I remember sitting in that meeting thinking, I want to get high, I want to get high, I want to get high. I needed relief, all because that I couldn't let go. That's attachment, that thing, that life that I wanted to have, the future, past, present I had with her was just shattered. Mm-hmm. And it affected me. It negatively affected my serenity more than my brother dying. I mean, it's hard to believe for some people, losing a brother versus, but because I had the tools and I was in the meetings and I was calling people, and I thank God for Shane, because just that one night, because even though I'd probably called Shane before during this time and a bunch of other people, just that one night, when I wanted to get high, and I shared in the meeting on a burning desire about it, and I called him as I was leaving the meeting in the car, and I was like, I just need somebody to talk to. He was like, I'm here, man. And we just started talking about what's going on. And I'm forever grateful to that man, a lot of people here, and you guys, and so the discovery, for me, what the impetus was, how do I get out of the suffering? This attachment. How do I get it? That's kind of what got me more into the sort of Eastern philosophies and stuff, and a lot of Hinduism and Buddhism and things like that.
Attachment meaning, for someone who doesn't know?
Well, the short is like I plus mine is like, it's sort of like the ownership, the sense of possession that we have over certain things, my car, my job, my wife, my kids. And ultimately what I've learned is, I answer with a question like, how can it be mine if I don't get to keep it when I die? Or if it's changing, it's finite, these things.
It could be mine if it leaves me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't, in AA we have, a 4-step for resentment and stuff, but that attachment and stuff, I sought out a relief from the suffering of that, and a lot of the study of Vedanta, the study of the Vedas, of Hinduism and things, of kind of where I've kind of gone, and that's what I get this shirt from, Om Namah Shivaya. A lot of meditation work and understanding that basically I've kind of come into a belief of just like we're all one, ultimately. There's not two. Advaita Vedanta, as they call it, not two. And a lot of that and study of that and a lot of meditation and stuff has kind of just brought me to this point to where, me, Justin, or what I am, when I was a child, is the same consciousness. When I'm middle-aged right now, the same consciousness. When I get older, it'll be the same. Me is the same. This body changes all throughout my life. But what I am doesn't change. And that's kind of what I've been on the search for. And because of that tragic moment that I perceived to be tragic at the time, with my wife leaving me, it became one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. Because it was the impetus to see, like, there's a spiritual teacher I follow who says, his greatest teachers were his ex-wives. Because he showed me, where I was falling spiritually, where I didn't have this sort of good grounds on. And so it's basically just kind of been a journey the last 2 years of a lot of meditative work and reading and studying and coming to a point to where I can sort of just, right now I get to the point to where I can just close my eyes and tap into it and just get relief, literally just like that, into spirituality. And by putting the action in, it's just like the impetus from drugs and alcohol, that moment where I have the most terrible moment laying in that detox bed. Something crazy happens that shakes my foundation of what I have, and then coming to a realization that I can't do that anymore. I can't suffer anymore. What do I got to do to get out of it? And that was really the impetus for me just going forward with a more spiritual outlook on life and following that path. And it's fucking great, man.
translated, what I'm hearing is that what I see in you is you're not as easily rattled. You're not as caught up. You tend to walk in peace. I see you at meetings just laid back, listening, present, but not like caught up. And it is what we're using drugs and alcohol for. It's the same exact thing. I try to tell my patients that if you do these meditation tools I'm teaching you, you will find that it's the same benefit as doing dope or alcohol. You just have to practice that harder, that's all, in terms of separating yourself. And there's this interesting video I show them too about near-death experiences where this doctor who's done extensive study on them talks about that, there's no way the brain can be awake and alive and having these experiences, or the mind, or whatever you call it, if the body's dead. I mean, these are bodies that are clinically dead. But obviously something is retaining these memories, and they're bringing back saying, no, I went here and I did this and I did this. And he says, so maybe it's not that drugs, who sometimes psychotropics can facilitate that type of experience. It's not that they heighten your experience, but instead they deaden your awareness and your ego enough for you to have that bigger experience. Because it truly is the ego and yourself of me and mine and I and what this is a cup, this is a candle, this is your hand, this is a microphone. All that stuff is in the way of being able to perceive the greater reality of life. And that's the scientific view of Buddhism, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, Vedanta, it's like the question, who am I? Or more accurately, like, what am I?
Or where am I?
Yeah, and it's like,
am I my thoughts? Am I my feelings?
Look at this table, am I this table? No. I look down at the body, am I this body? Some people might worry, well, yeah, or I say no. Like, so when I dream, is this physical body in my dream? No. But I'm there.
Right.
So I'm not this body.
Right.
And I go and it takes it back, all the way back to basically consciousness. Am I the mind? Well, I can observe thoughts. They come and they go. Am I the thoughts? No. Something is there at the center. And that's what I aim to find today.
And does that center really die, or is it just the body that dies and then the center continues? The self, or not the self, the consciousness of you continues.
Well, like what I said before, it's like there was life before this body. The life is the same throughout this body, and it will be there after this body's gone.
Nice.
Most likely.
Nice.
I don't know that for a fact, but
it makes sense to me.
The thing is, it's the finite versus the infinite. I want to find the infinite, because ultimately, peace, contentment, all this kind of stuff, it can't really be found in finite objects.
We try,
but it always ends up going away, or it can be lost. And finding that part, that's what my kind of spiritual journey is right now, is finding that which is infinite. And through meditation, I can get there. I'm not there all the way yet, but definitely may not make it.
This guy in this video, to wrap it up, was saying today that we get the new item and it brings benefit to our lives, and we're really excited and we use it and we're happy, but then that shine wears off, and then we want the next thing, and then once you get the next thing, then now the other thing is a source of discontent because you don't need it anymore and it's just in the way. And it's just that chase, that constant chase, that the new iPhone or the new car or whatever it is going to make me happy, but that's not fulfilling consciousness and what's really going to make you content inside. So I guess that's ultimately what I'm trying to say in a nutshell, is I've watched you be more content this past year, Justin.
Yeah.
It seems like it's really happening for you, man.
Yeah, a demonstration is like, if I think that this object here is like something I want, car, money, fame, wife, husband, house, whatever, and that'll make me happy. If I get it, it'll make me happy. Okay, now I got it. I achieved it. Did happiness jump from this thing into me? No. It arises from inside, and that's what I'm trying to find.
That's very well said.
So
I like that.
Yeah.
Namaste. Auspicious one.
Yeah.
All right, we always like to end it by any message you would like to give to the newcomer out there who's still struggling and is like, I can't go to a meeting, I can't deal with this crazy recovery stuff. Any words that might encourage them from your own journey about how to just give it a try, maybe?
Look inside yourself. Try and find out who you are. Notice where you're at right now in this room. Maybe you're listening, and just look and see what feels comfortable and uncomfortable. Try and any uncomfort you have, we have a tool set here to help take care of that. And there's a possibility. If it worked for me, after everything you just heard, and a lot of the other people on this podcast, I guarantee it can work for you too. And so just reach out. Whatever, whether it be IM12 or any 12-step meeting, whatever, maybe just email us here to this podcast, whatever it takes. Just take that chance. Because I had to run out of chances. But that one last one was enough. So just try that.
Wow, perfect, man. I like how you said, too, about, check it out. That's all you got to do, just check it out. Make a small move in the direction of something different.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, man. Well, it's been a great pleasure having you on the podcast, sir. I knew it was going to be a great story. We like to end in the usual tradition by joining us in the Serenity Prayer, if you would, Dan. So let's do prayer, guys. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, keep coming back. It works if you're working, you die if you don't. Guys, we love you dearly. Come back and see us and send this to somebody who needs some help. And we love you. Peace out.